Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We are ZEN EB5. It's myself and my colleague, Bhuplesh Gupta. We're very grateful to have Phuong Le of KLDP with us. This is an educational webinar. We're here to answer questions. And, I actually got a bunch of questions, believe it or not, that I've kind of just compiled. But, please do feel free to also put any questions you may have in the chat, and we'll try our best to get to everything. Again, thank you so much, Fong. And I guess let's just get into it, right? The elephant in the room. I think the
Sure,
messages and
sure.
what everyone's talking about. The memo, the Friday Memorial Day memo, right?
The Memorial
Um,
Day surprise, yeah, yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
It was the gift to everybody, right? To start off the weekend. What is your take on the new memo? Who does it target? And from the information we know now, do you think it will impact EB5?
Yeah, I mean, it's understandable, right? And this administration, I think we've seen that they have this habit of dropping off news or reviewing big news on Fridays, right? I was joking to Neural that at least this time they told us in the morning versus last time with the $100,000 H-1B fee when everyone's at dinner flying around, and that just ruined like everyone's like weekend. Um, Not to say that this news made my weekend fun, but the thing is this, when we first looked at the memo, I think a lot of us, and not just our firm, by the way, we are friends with a lot of our colleagues with other firms, and we all just basically just messaged each other and was like, what is this? Right? It's clearly a very policy. I mean, I say that lightly, right? It's clear where it comes from. It comes from certain members of the White House who have a very anti-immigration bent, I think you can say. Um, and I think it's funny because the way they're crafting a lot of these policies is that it's almost like a broad brush, right? It's they're throwing a wide net. And so when they do that, it seems like when you read it, it seems that it can apply to everybody. And it theoretically does. But the thing is, if you step back and think about who the administration has been consistently targeting,
Mhm.
um, there's a couple of things that we have to keep in mind. Number one, there's a mandate, right? An unofficial mandate that they want deportation numbers up. They want more deportations than they've ever had before. They want records, right? That's kind of like how this how the White House works right now. And so part of that, if you think about it, is who exactly are they likely targeting with this memo? Even though, yeah, it could theoretically apply to just about everyone that applies for AOS. I think they took their hand a little bit with when they list out very certain disqualifying factors, right? Those who they perceive to have used multiple non-immigrant visas, those who have a history of criminal or immigration violations, those who they probably think bring little to no economic use or benefit to the US. Those are the people they're targeting. So in other words, low-hanging fruit. We think the groups that are most vulnerable are essentially those groups. Uh, True to form, as soon as the memo is released, I mean, it's crazy because what I hope everyone here realizes also is that the memo is released, but it doesn't mean there's no indication that they've gone back and revisited any of the past filed or pending 45 cases, right? There's no kind of indication that they've targeted certain that they're using AI to pull up like certain cases to reopen them. All we have is this announcement and that's it. But you can already see how it plays out. Almost immediately after this was released, before the day was even over, they started walking it back, much like they did last time. I can guarantee you that someone got into the White House's ear and said, "What about like all these H-1Bs, right? What about you can guess how this goes? What about the future of AI? That we're going to lose this arms race. What about these people in biotech and everything else? What about EB5 investors?" And almost very quickly, even though this is not really in the policy memo, they kind of again, because they release information through press releases, through interviews, through Truth Social posts and everything else. They said, well, like, look, listen, if you seemingly provide some sort of economic benefit to the US, maybe this doesn't quite apply to you, right? And so I think as it is right now, there's a lot of things kind of up in the air. It's kind of open, but my general sense is that this is what we've been telling our investors. If you have lawfully been in the US, you maintain H-1B or L status, and you already filed your I-45, you have it pending or you're about to file, no history of criminal or immigration violations, we expect you to be fine, right? We expect you to be fine. Um, Number one, it's like we just don't think that that's the group that this memo is really going after. Number two, if you want a legal basis for it, the legal basis for it is even stronger. So the way law works, right? Law is not exciting. You don't really think about where it comes from normally, but there are levels to this. Um, the most powerful one being the statute, the RA itself, right? So the RA itself specifically allows for concurrent filing. This is not exotic, right? Um, this in particular, but what was released is a policy memo. What it's supposed to do is in theory not so much create new law, right? And they try to carefully say this a couple times, but they're not creating new law. They're just advising them on this is their current stance of how they're interpreting this and applying it and everything else. Um, I think most of us weren't born yesterday. We clearly don't believe it. It's clearly trying to give some discretion to officers to deny certain cases where, they're easy low-hanging targets, right? People with past violations and everything else. Because remember, they can't just straight out deny. So those of you who have families here, who are just working white collar jobs and everything else, you don't have an exciting checkered background. Like it'll be hard to exactly justify how they could deny that and what reasons they would put down, right? You think about equities. All the equities would strongly favor one side, which is the people who are working here, paying taxes, contributing to society doesn't really quite make sense. So I think short term wise, I know people want answers. There's not going to be any answers for a while.
Mhm.
Uh, Let it play out. There'll be some more clarity. It will certainly be enjoying, and I think we'll get some more clarity hopefully within the next few weeks.
Yeah. So actually, since this came out, not only the EB5, but a lot of other industry experts on start posting on LinkedIn. Okay, if that's really the case, then it's the end of H1B era. Like
And of a
nobody would.
lot of things, right? It's stupid.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's dumb.
because it impacts all the industries like tech, bioengineering. It impacts everyone, not just EB5 immigrations.
Yeah, and so
And
yeah.
and some of the places actually start floating this. I'll show you. I'm sure you're aware of this, Phuong,
Oh,
that
you're gonna put it on the screen. You're gonna make this fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
this one.
All right.
So what do you think about this thing? Is AI generated or what it is?
Um, for the I've seen this floating around over the weekend, and the first thing I looked at it, like, and when I saw it, I was like, "Are you serious?" Right? So I don't. I've seen it posted on LinkedIn. I've seen people claim that they received it. I'm not sure, but I think it apparently originated with some immigration attorney in Florida because everything crazy comes from Florida, right? Um, and I've seen the Reddit like post and everything else, but the thing is, when you look at this, there's a couple of things, right? Um, Number one, like in short, this looks like a crappily done fake. It's it appears to be an RFE, but it's not an RFE if you know what to look for, right? Um, this doesn't follow their standard format. It doesn't have the barcodes and everything else. The formatting is all wrong and messed up. And more importantly, think about it this way: the AOS policy memo was just released Friday.
Yeah.
Was apparently received Friday as well. Like what? USCIS is moving at the speed of light now. They're emailing these things. It doesn't work that way. Um, Even when the policy memo is released, I mean, officers need time to read through it, digest it, figure out how they're gonna use it and everything else. That just hasn't happened yet. This is kind of
Yeah.
from our own personal conversations with people within the government attorneys and everything else, but they didn't know about this policy memo. They were just as surprised as you were, right? And if that's the case, there's no way, right? So on a common sense level, okay, law is not exciting. It's not like a sporting event, right? Where there's a play by play, whatever else. No, it moves at like a snail's pace, right? It doesn't That's why I get people asking for status updates, but it doesn't work that way. So number one, this is a fake. It doesn't follow the same format. There's no way they would read it and apply it the same way the same day. Not to mention there's just nonsense in here, right? What is this?
Yeah.
We need to see your proficiency in English. That doesn't
Yeah.
matter. There's no military stuff. So anyone that's floating that around, and I've seen, again, I don't blame any clients or investors for asking if it's real, but I've seen even like attorneys within our industry apparently get tricked by it, and that to me is surprising.
I saw at
Okay.
least 2 attorneys reposted this thing on LinkedIn,
Yeah, I'm
and I
like,
was
what is this,
questioning.
guys? Come on. So
Yeah.
nothing's happened yet. Like, look,
Yeah.
if you, I've said this over and over again, and I spent a considerable amount of time Friday over the weekend today, and I see some of the people I thought we messaged and talked to are on this webinar. Short-term wise, nothing has happened yet. I think you guys will all be okay still if you are proceeding with AOS, whether it's I mean with your EB5 cases, your past EB5 cases. There's nothing to me to indicate that anyone should be worried at this time, right? There's no preemptive, there's no things that you have to start doing to prepare or to answer a possible RFE denial. Like that's all just pure speculation. And I expect, again, that as we get more uproar and pushback, they will release more and more announcements clarifying this proposal. In any event, we know of at least 2, 3 firms who are gearing up to file an injunction against this new policy, essentially to block it. So one way or another, again, it creates news, it creates turmoil, but in terms of real world impact, I think everyone should just stay the course right now. You know, this, by the way, if you remember back to Trump 1.0, this is pretty much a page straight out of Steve Bannon's like playbook, right? That Stephen Miller has probably stolen. So the thing is, the thing that people might not necessarily realize a lot of times is that in certain positions of power, you can create whatever policy or law that you want, right? Even if it's illegal, and even if you know that it's going to be overturned. But the process of overturning something and challenging something sometimes will take long enough to cause just turmoil or chaos. As for certain groups, right? That's all they want, right? The fear of things going wrong, the thought that people are being singled out, the thought that you're no longer safe in this process. They want to provoke that fear. And so sometimes that really is the purpose. Everyone here who's an EB5 investor, though, this memo, I don't see this as really being geared towards you.
Yeah.
Great. In your opinion, do you think that this policy shift is why I-526E and I-485 approvals have slowed down over the past few months?
No, that's totally separate. 526E approvals, they're slower, but they're slower across the board, right? That happened even before this. It's also what happens when you decide to gut an agency. They used to have USCIS for a number of years, regardless of how the private sector and the industry felt and the government and IPO felt about each other. For the most part, like the officers at IPO, they understood it. They mostly got it right. And part of it is EB5 requires a certain amount of institutional knowledge or history. If you're new to EB5, I mean, everything looks shady, right? Everything looks like there's something's going on, someone's hiding something, or where's all this money coming from? But over time, I think you begin to have a sense of like, this is normal, or this is just what people have. And as seasoned adjudicators are able to navigate that. Now, when you have this new crop of people coming in, it takes longer for them to wrap their heads around it, longer for them to feel okay with these certain like issues and decisions. So I think it's on the whole, it takes longer. But again, it's all cyclical, right? It's a cycle. I do expect it to normalize. I think people are putting a lot of weight into, they look at things as per quarter, per 6 months, but again, it's a much different cycle than that. So I would say don't overreact so much to news that you hear from last month, this month, or like 6 months ago. Sometimes there's not much to draw from, to forecast from.
Yep. And I have seen it, and I'm sure you have seen it. Sometimes they just wake up and approve bunch of stuff in a single day.
Yeah. I mean, like, look, so whenever people ask us about processing times or whatever else, we tend to give, I mean, we basically give an average, right? And the thing is, it's just, for us, it's just a working average. Could be more, it could be less. But, we just try to give you what we think is the general median. or what has predictive value. I mean, like I said before, our fastest 526E approvals were under 1 month. But I mean, that's an outlier. That's not correct,
Yeah.
right? There have been 45 approvals that have been 2 weeks after 526E has been approved. Again, that's an outlier. It's not helpful. So that's marketing fluff, right? And so that has no predictive value. So, it's always closer to like the middle, the average.
So for the other EB5 categories who are now going to be kind of pushed into consular processing, like what is that process? And like, what are the main disadvantages of consular processing?
Time.
Time.
Time. So in answering this question, right, I think I have to consider this as both an attorney and also look, we know a number of you folks attending this webinar and also just in general the type of people who are doing EB5. I would
Mhm.
also have to answer this question as a parent. So the main disadvantages are this, like I think when you've been in the US for a while, that you have a set schedule, you have a set community and everything else. Um, it's to me the biggest impact isn't so much on the investor themselves, it's probably on their kids, on their family.
Mhm.
So it's when you go through like one of the biggest, like by far the biggest advantage of concurrent filing, I think, is the ability to once you file your application invest to basically just stay in the US legally and just begin your life normal and interrupted and just go on, right? Like that has tremendous value to a lot of people. The issue with concept processing is that now you're injecting a lot of volatility, a lot of randomness, that there's a big black box around that you don't really have a lot of answers to. Uh, each consulate, so the process of going through the consulate is not exactly complicated. It's What's complicated though is that each consulate pretty much acts as its own island, its own kingdom, that there's not a lot of transparency into, right? And so whether like how much capacity they have, how fast they're scheduling interviews, or even their decisions, right? There's a doctrine of consular non-reviewability, which means that they don't even have to explain half the time why they did not. So all these things cause people anxiety. They cause them stress. And I think especially for our Indian investors, you already know a very simple analogy or illustration is everyone right now knows how difficult it is to even get an H-1B stamping appointment.
Mm-hmm.
What makes you think, I mean, if that's the case, the thought of do my investment, going back overseas, wanting to come back, and not knowing when I can get an EB5 visa interview is tremendously stressful. What
Yeah.
I do in the meantime, where are they going to go to school, right?
Mhm.
I, do I keep paying mortgage payments over in the US? Or if I have an apartment, at least I keep paying it. Like these are all things that inject a lot of volatility. So I think that's why, for the most part, people, unless you only really go through constant processing if you started overseas, right? Because
Mhm.
it's unwind things and everything else. In the US, not so much. Not so
Yeah.
much.
But let's say if somebody really have to go to consular processing, the IP officer determines that they have to go to, I still don't see that a big issue because let's say if there is some delay and there is a change in the schedule, they can always come back on their underlying status, and then go back again if needed.
If you have underlying status.
Yeah.
If it's
If
correct.
okay, if that's a big if.
Yeah. Yeah, traditionally, most people have not though. I mean, I understand what you're saying, which is that if they maintain H or L, right, they can come back in. Traditionally, though, most people, especially if you start overseas, you don't have that option. But if you do, then it's a little bit different.
Right. Well, I'm talking about not the overseas, like the people who might be now told to go to consular processing who are already in US. To me, it may not be that big of a issue if that really happens because most of the people do maintain their underlying statuses.
Sure, if they're in that situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I just have a question. It says that if someone is kind of pushed into consular processing, is there some kind of a mechanism, like a motion to reopen, or would they be forced to comply?
If they go to concept, look. So the thing is this. Typically, during consular processing, and this is also true of the 45 stage actually. Um, Sorry, I had a I had a client just call me on WhatsApp. Um, so, for the most part, I mean, when you look at the green card process, right? And this is true whether you're in the US with the 526E and the 45, or overseas with the 526E and consular processing. The second part of it is mostly it's essentially mostly a background check. There really shouldn't be any issues, right? The 526E is the hard part. Um, um, so if the 526E is approved, generally the second part should just be very straightforward. It should just be background check. If you're a good person, whatever else, it should just come and go. So
All right. I think, Baplesh, do you have anything else in this
I
topic?
think there's just one question which I want to clarify because over the weekend, couple of people have asked me. These are the people who are on B1, B2 in US already, and they are now looking to file EB5. Um, their question is like, will they be also exempted, or is this memo applies to them and they have to go back?
I think right now, I think the most vulnerable group right now is B1, B2, and it really is provided reasons a case by case basis.
Yeah.
I think certainly those folks have to be a little bit more careful. I strongly recommend that you guys talk to, if that situation applies to you, I mean, that's when you should be talking to your attorney, right?
Yeah.
Figure out whether it makes sense, whether it passes the stress test, whether you have things that you can kind of point to. Anyone in B1, B2, I think you should, even if you genuinely change your intention, it's a good time to check in and see whether it's a good idea to file, or maybe you wait a little bit for more clarity or relief, or maybe an injunction, right? So,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can pass. Like there has been enough debate on this thing, and there's enough thing. There are a few more important questions I see. Let's proceed on to that.
Sure. You want to start answering should we answer the question?
Sure. I have a lot of questions about CSPA and aging out. What is your ultimate guidance on child aging out rules?
I mean, look, so at this point, it is what it is, right? It's if you're looking for 100% certainty or clarity, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it. You can ask me, you can ask basically every single attorney that has been on these webinars for the past week or something. At some point, you're going to have to become comfortable with a certain amount of uncertainty. And the simple reason why is there's ambiguity, right? So there's no amount of analysis, there's no amount of ChatGPT or whatever that you're going to be able to give, because what people want is a very clear, definitive answer. The reality is, like, after August of 2025, hysterically, after you file when the visa is first available to you, it's just not clear whether that means at the time of 526 e-file or at the time of 45 adjudication, essentially. And so it's going to be up in the air. However, I think what I told people is, for a variety of reasons, right? There's a practical way of looking at this, and there are some legal things you can kind of look at that might make you feel a little bit better. I always think in terms of, like, regardless how complicated things is, I think when you look at things pragmatically with some common sense, usually that's going to be the right answer, right? And so on one hand, I think what it is, look, if if you if you are if you have a child that is 18, 19, 20 anyways, you almost have to, if you look at this from a risk analysis decision, you almost have to go forward with it, because what's your other option, right? You don't really have an option. And so I think part of it is, at the very least, if you file and, like, you get approved before any of that backlog, you're safe or whatever else. So far, what we've seen is there's been no indications of any kid aging out, right? Post pulse else. It hasn't been that long, true, but still, it's there. The other thing is, there are certain mechanisms in place where in the past, when cases have been filed and when visa categories have been backlogged, that there's no reason why they can't do it again. So on one hand, I think there are a number of us who think that even though they released that August 2025 policy memo where it's kind of unclear when they're locked in, first of all, it's not exactly clear that it did change 100%, right?
Mhm.
So it very well be at the date of lock-in. But other thing is, if you actually just look at what they've done in the past, when EB5 is backlogged for India and was actually still in the policy memo, they can simply go back to applying adjudicating cases on a visa availability, uh, basically like system, which means that not first in, first out, but each month when they look at the visa bulletin, they'll just look at to see whether EB5 is current for India or not. If it's not current, what they will simply do is just not approve underlying 526E for
Mhm.
cases where there are children. What does this do? It effectively just allows it prevents the child from aging out and
Mhm.
maintains the underlying eligibility, right? So there are lots of times where the government passes like nonsensical rules or laws or policy that we rightfully are open arms about. But sometimes they come up with like a system or solution that honestly is kind of ingenious and makes a lot of sense. This is one of them. It takes no work, right? If it's not current, just hold on to it. Prevents the kid from aging out, prevents all these kids from being screwed, keeps families together. They've done it every other time when things have been in place. And so that's what I kind of what I've told investors, right? The first answer primarily, like if you have a kid that's 18, 19, or 20, you can sit here and obsess over it, but it's not going to bring you any kind of clarity. Second thing is, have there been similar case studies in the past where the government has instituted measures to protect kids? Yes, and what I just told you is one of them. The third thing is my general philosophy is like, look, if you are in life, if you are ever in trouble and you're going to be screwed, the general thinking is that you never want to be the only one that's screwed. You want to be screwed with a lot of people, right? Because that way you can all band together and fight. We've talked to a number of very talented like litigation firms out there who basically have already said if they come down and their policy is that visas are not available till 45 adjudication, we'll sue. We'll do
Mhm.
class action, right? Um, basically, why do you treat this one class of kids differently than before this arbitrary date? And like I said before, if you know any parents, there is no group of there's no group out there that's more than willing to fight tooth and nail than parents who you're telling them that you're going to separate from their kids for some interpretation. It's not happening, right? So again, I think when you look at it from that way, it gives
Absolutely.
you some level of comfort, you know?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And just little side question, I have someone asking that can investors, previously you had mentioned that there's some firms or people getting together to kind of file an injunction against the memo. And I have someone asking, can potential investors or investors join those injunctions?
No, not right now. It's premature. It's premature. Um, if there's an injunction that's filed, it's not a class action, right? So if
Hmm.
an injunction is filed, it's going to be filed to just block that law, period. If you
Hmm.
want to join something later on, I guarantee you, if the opportunity arises, you guys will all hear about it. But an
Hmm.
injunction in this case makes sense, and if it does, the benefit of it is it will apply to everybody, right?
Hmm.
Inside and outside of EB5 without you guys paying anything. So
Yeah.
want to pay legal fees, there's plenty of opportunities for that. Right now, just save your money.
Well, I think overall, if you look at the overall big picture, EB5 is a very small component, which is gonna, if this memo indeed impact H1B and EB or green cards in general, EB5 is a very small portion. They're much bigger, like EB1, EB2, EB3, all H1Bs will be hugely impacted. So it's just not the EB5 attorneys. I think the attorneys from the regular immigrations are also involved in this thing because I see a lot of posts going on LinkedIn where
Yeah.
not only the attorneys but all the tech giants are also
Yeah.
concerned with this thing.
Again, this illustrates the point that I said earlier, right? Um, always take a step back. I mean, the policy memo gets released. We must have, I mean, I must have replied to like 800 emails on Friday, right? And the thing is this, everyone wants clarity, everyone wants answers now. Does this affect me? Man, I don't know. Nobody knows, right? But
Yeah.
the short answer right now is I will tell you I don't think so. I'm pretty confident in saying no. But as you see the day unfold, right? And today's news cycle is much different than it was even 10 years ago, where it's not TV, it's WhatsApp groups, it's LinkedIn, it's Twitter and everything else. You
Hmm.
see the different groups that pop up. And this goes to the whole philosophy of if you're gonna be screwed with a lot of people.
Hmm.
So as busy as EV. So one of the things Neural and I have been doing a lot more in the past year or two, and Bhupesh, we've seen at some of the events, is we've been more involved with lobbying, right, on Washington, D.C.
Mm.
to get behind the scenes, to get in front of Congress, to see how, to make sure that we can drive legislation, have our voices be heard, and everything else. But part of that is you realize that lobbying or just influence Congress requires a lot of money, a lot of power, right? A lot of resources. And what gives me comfort or hope is that this the H-1B lobby, specifically powered by all these AI tech-powered giants, right, who are just printing money right and left, they'll do something.
Yeah,
They'll do something.
yeah, I totally agree. That's
Yeah,
what
they'll do something. No one's sitting around doing nothing.
Yep, I totally agree. And when somebody comes with this kind of question, I said, there are much bigger fishes in the ocean for this. They'll do for us.
Yeah. That's when it's good to be screwed with everybody else, right? Just falling out low, you got a chance.
Right, because if we think about, they already clarified that that the applicants with economic impact will be exempted, and said, okay, if that's the case, and if you really start thinking, the H-1Bs are also doing economic impact, right? All these AI engineers, biochemical engineers, or doctors, or whoever is it, they are bringing a lot of value to the U.S. Economy and services. Why would they should be impacted, right? Nobody should be impacted with this thing.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is like if the U.S. is so desperate to hold on to basically prevent foreign countries from acquiring even NVIDIA chips or whatever else, why would you then basically gift wrap your AI talent and the people behind it and ship them overseas, right? That makes no sense. And I think even at some point, someone in the White House or whatever else realizes this and they got to walk it back.
Yeah.
All right. So should we switch gears a little bit and talk about what's going to happen
Rima,
after?
one question. I just want to clarify because I'm reading the questions posted here, and most of people are concerned about consular processing, but I think Phuong clear like
That's what
consular
that's why.
processing
No
does
one needs to
not.
go through consular processing
Yeah.
right now. Some people contacted me and they told me, I can't believe they did. Like, look, I'm really worried. Sorry, I actually already left the US. So I'm gonna go to consular processing. I'm like, it's been one day. Like, what would you do? Like, nobody, unless there's someone specifically tells you to, you don't have to voluntarily go, right? It makes no sense.
Yeah. So guys, don't worry. Nobody's going for consular processing.
Yeah, unless you want to, but that's
Unless you want to.
So
All right.
should we kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about the grandfathering deadline? And just, I think like topic has been really hashed out, but just like a basic question that I get a lot is, so like what happens to people who want to file or who end up filing after September? That's basically a question that I get a lot. And
sure. Sorry, someone from my team just asked me. If you've ever seen me in an office, you know that I basically have 15 different chat windows and emails like floating around. That's just what happens. But in terms of the grandfathering deadline, right? So, it's funny because it's one of those things where it's on one hand, I guess it's nice that the grandfathering provision is in the RIA, to be explicitly there and everything else. But in some aspects, I think it has caused people, it has, in a weird way, done more harm than good in some aspects, right? And the reason why simply is there was always a version of grandfathering, right? In all the previous like pauses and lulls and stops and everything else. Like if you've been involved with EB, like I've been doing EB5 for 20 years, there's always some impending crisis or doom or something that happens, right? The program gets suspended, the program it goes up, it goes down, right? Or like there's a lapse. It's tied to spending bills. Like there are things that I've had to learn that I never thought I had to learn. I had to learn like these dumb cycles of when Congress passes legislation because it just so happens that extension EB5 is tied to the omnibus bill, right? All these things that pop up, and sometimes it doesn't pass and it gets suspended for a while, sometimes for a few months. But whenever it has come back in the past, what has happened is that essentially everyone who has filed before that or in this weird dead zone, they all get made whole. They all get made whole. And it makes sense, right? It's almost like, well, like, look, we can't do anything right now, but once it gets up and running again, we'll just apply the same rules and we'll move on. So that's why, like, so the thing is this now. On one, that's what I mean, but it's nice to have grandfathering on one hand, it's specifically there, but now we are making grandfathering almost like an issue, or it's an issue that didn't really need to be made an issue, right? And so there's always an argument of like it should be more predictable. On the other hand, now my worry is that it's a negotiation card, right?
Right.
Um, I think that the people who file after 9:30, like after 9:30, in short, um, but again, you have to be comfortable with dealing with a certain amount of uncertainty. But if you file after 9:30, there's no indication. I mean, we still expect your cases to be processed. It doesn't mean that you stop processing cases after 9:30. And also we do expect that like in the future, like I can, as we're going through these discussions right now, right? And by the way, so and there's we'll have a more substantive update at some point later on, right? But reauthorization discussions are already going, right? Negotiations are already going. Key data points, key issues that both sides want to discuss are already being had. And one of the non-negotiables, and one of the simplest things I think that will be on the table, is going to be, look, anyone that filed after September 30th, uh, let's just say the program does lapse for whatever reason, right? The easiest thing would be like anyone that filed before that, they are now just basically whisked and like they are made whole again, just like it has happened every other time in the past. In short, I expect everyone to be okay, right? You do need to have a little bit of faith or a lot of or some belief in the process, but it's happened every single time in the past. It's the easiest thing we can ask to negotiate for, and there's no reason why they wouldn't do that. Because if they say no, all that money needs to be refunded. There's no rhyme or reason to that. Um, and so I think that's why it should ultimately be fine. By the way, just so everyone knows, even the people in Congress were surprised that grandfathering ends 2026 when the RA runs to 2027. They thought it was,
Yeah.
they always thought it ran to 2027. They thought it was a typo, right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. So there's a variety of reasons, but I think honestly, if you are filing after September, I still think you'd be fine. The real deadline for most people is not September, it's January, right? Because come January, they're gonna increase the price.
Right.
So that's your real deadline. So
Yeah.
that's a real issue. Otherwise, grandfathering is much ado about nothing.
Mhm.
So coming on to the new investment amount, which I'm seeing a couple of numbers, it's going 900 or 950K or somewhere in between. If that happens, which is definitely going to happen because it's written in the law, will it be applicable to people who file after September or only after January?
It would have to be anyone that filed after January, because you would have filed your case already. That's a good question. I didn't think about it that way, but it would have to be obviously if you have filed and funded before the price increase, the price increase doesn't apply to you.
What about the partial, if they do partial?
There's some debate about that, right? So the law does not require you to be fully funded, right? It just requires you to file. So there's as it is right now, we feel relatively comfortable. I mean, there's no explicit requirement for you to be fully funded before you. I guess your risk is, hey, if it gets rejected for whatever reason, now you're kind of screwed. But I mean, it looks like partial should be okay. That being said, if you can fully fund, it's in your best interest to fully fund, right? Because I think anytime you're dealing with a hard deadline like this, you want to lessen the amount of uncertainties, not increase it, right? You want to lessen your exposure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Alicia, do you have anything else? So I have a question. The bulletin says reserve categories are current, but approvals are slow. So if the USCIS has leftover visas this year, do they roll over to protect the reserve categories next year?
I guess, yes. So I mean, it's funny because I had dinner a few weeks ago in the Bay Area, and Charlie Oppenheimer, that Charlie Oppenheimer was
Mm-hmm.
directly across from me, and we were just talking. And the honest, like Charlie doesn't know, man. If Charlie doesn't know, or Charlie's unsure, then none of us know, right? And so again, like we try to predict, we try to forecast, and everything else, but there's only so much you can do, right? And so again, part of it is it'll be there. I think the visa waste issue is a much bigger issue.
Yeah.
But again, until it all plays out, we're trying to forecast what's going to do, what amount of numbers are rolling over, what queues are there and not there. You only do so much.
Yeah. But I think this is certain that there will be a visa wastage this year. But they're not approving so fast, and they're not approving all 10,000 visas this year.
Yeah, I mean, visa wastage has been probably the biggest scandal or sin in EB5, but not just EB5, a lot of industries for a long time, right? So there was a movement, there was a push that for a while to basically, again, we talk about interpretation. A lot of laws is inherently ambiguous, right? And so you need to be comfortable with both understanding the what it says, how to apply it, how it plays out in real life, how things get impacted. But there are some who argue, I don't think they're wrong, that whenever whenever cases come to the MVC or cases are pretty much available, the visas merely should just be assigned at that point. They don't necessarily have to be given out, right? That way, like they're kind of in queue, they're in process, and it prevents visa waste. Some back and forth about that, but it's unfortunate at this point. There's nothing that has happened yet, so we'll see.
All right. That's so kind of like to wrap everything, because I know that we've covered so much. But like I talk to so many investors every day, and especially over these past few days, I've been speaking to so many investors who were like super into the process, and now all of a sudden they're like, no, I just kind of want to slow down, like see what's going to happen. So I just wonder, like, what's your advice for like serious investors who are like in the US now? What is your best advice of how they should like move forward given, September, but then also this AOS number? Like, what is your just advice from your heart, like of what you think people should be thinking
Yeah,
about doing?
yeah. And anyone that has talked to me last few days or this week will get the same advice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, look, there's always something happening, right? And the way that this current administration is, there's lots of scary news that gets released and everything. If you feel uncomfortable, right, for whatever reason, and you want some clarity, I get it. But at the same time, it's like I do honestly believe that our investors, our clients, most of you folks here who are just hardworking H-1B professionals, right? You are already worried enough about your current situation with layoffs, with stability, where you're not even worried about yourself. You're worried about like how your family's gonna be, I think there's a reason why you decided to plunge into EB5. And I think part of it was when I talked to a lot of folks, and it really doesn't really, and I say to them beginning, but it doesn't really hit them later on until they get their CPR card, right? But I think the overall promise of BB5 has always been like freedom, right? Freedom and control your own destiny and everything else. And I think if you think about how this is all playing out, it's another version of being tied to your employer and all this uncertainty. The administration can say all this stuff, but in the meantime, if you're thinking about doing EB5, you're going to go through that process. It makes sense to continue, right? And if later on, for whatever reason, you feel uncomfortable, I mean, I guess you can stop, but my advice would be to stay the course. We try to tell everyone, like, look, take a step back, breathe, exhale, go out to a nice dinner or whatever. Like there's no clear certainty or answers right now. But the rest of the process for EB5 has always been kind of the same. So I honestly expect everyone to be okay. So regardless of whether it's an injunction or them realizing that because the other thing is, if you do this to EB5 investors, they're throwing out a lot of money, right? And so at the end of the day, Trump, Kushner and his family, they've used EB5, one of their biggest backers. And again, you look back and look at the bigger picture, the donors, the people behind the curtain, like Steve Witkoff, right? One of the biggest Republican donors out there, billionaire, has used EB5 as projects. So it doesn't. I feel like EB5 is going to be the least affected. That's my simple take. EB5 and H1B, for example.
Yeah. That reminds me of a question. I know this question has been discussed enough. Like, let's say in certain unfortunate scenarios, if people lose their jobs, they're laid off, will EB5 come to their rescue? Should they apply before or after their leave? Like, what's
ideally you filed before, right?
Yeah.
So there's still 245K is still in place, right? 245K, for those of you guys don't know, is if you're filing EB5, 245K basically forgives or waives up to 180 days of unlawful employment, presence, or status. So this matters because everyone on H knows about the 60-day clock. Well, with 245K, you effectively have a 180-day clock, right? But most of us are not trying to get brave and go with the full 180 days. It just gives you some breathing.
Right.
I just think that there's no reason for you if and again, hopefully everyone here doesn't have to go through it, but if you do have a layoff, whatever else, if you have filed before, great. If not, then it makes sense for you to file sooner rather than later, right? So at the very least, you are allowed to lawfully stay here, and get your EAD hopefully within 3 or 4, I guess, 5 or 6 months now. So it makes sense for you to still go through the process if you want to go through it.
Yeah. So you're saying that even if you have not filed earlier and if you are being laid off, you can still go ahead and file EB5 to protect your status.
Yeah, because what's your alternative, right?
Yeah.
It's if you want to continue your life here, and have the freedom to work, travel, and everything else. I mean, besides EB5, there aren't very many viable alternatives.
Yeah, because finding a job these days within 60 days is not so easy. Like,
Yeah, and I feel for everyone that has to do that because it's very hard. It's
Yeah.
it's hard even when the economy is good, much less now.
Right.
So yeah, look, Bublesh, Rima, thank you for having us, and everyone here who joined late in the evening. Some of you are about to drive home. Some of you are this is past dinner, so hopefully we helped you out. If not, you have more questions, just let us know. The ZEN EB5 team will be there. You guys know where to find me and Earl. So look, we'll all be fine, guys. So go focus on your dinner, go focus on your day. I expect this to all be okay. All
Yeah.
right.
we are here for you.
All right. Thanks,
All
guys.
right. Well, thank you guys so much. And again, thank you, Phuong. Thank you always. You're always so generous with your wealth of knowledge. And everyone, we wish you the best. Please do reach out if you'd like to talk about anything. Of course, I'm sure you know how to reach out to Phuong, but if you'd like, I'd also be very happy to connect you. And Buplesh and I are also available. We'd love to talk to you as well about our projects that we have open. And other than that, I think we all just wish everyone the best and a really great evening.
Cool. Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
Phuong.
you. Thank you. Take care.